HR director is typically not in the driving seat to lead this integrated process across the organisation for whatever reason. Maybe because of their role, maybe because of their capability. But typically the HR director has not had the remit or the accountability to drive organisation change across this entire cycle. So when you think about the model, I think you need to think about it in two ways. One is the HR director, yourselves, leading this process, if you have the opportunity across the wider business. The other lens to look at it is you can apply this model within the HR function in itself. So you can either look at it through both lenses. So what I've been working on with David and Kay is to think about the role of the HR director in each of these 6 Ps. So in the planning area is how you take the methodologies and apply it to how to develop a people strategy, for example. And where many HR directors historically fall down, in my experience, is that often chief execs ask them to develop a people strategy. Their starting point is best practice. Maybe they're going to reach for the CIPD, or they're going to think about one of the latest kind of trends in HR. And often the people strategy ends up being completely divorced from the business strategy, where in fact it should be the intrinsic part of it and should be developed jointly with the chief exec and the executive team and have real pertinence to the business rather than be something which is somewhat standalone. And I've come across many organisations where the HR director has been quite ivory tower, isolated from the business, driven by their own agenda, and that usually fails and the HR director doesn't last very long. But what I've been doing is taking this methodology and saying, well, how do you apply it within an HR function so the HR function can apply it to themselves, but very much part of the overall business strategy, as well as helping to develop the wider business strategy as a cabinet member of the executive team. So that's sort of lens around this, and obviously the planning phases of it would include everything from manpower to learning development to talent to systems and processes. So the plan needs to encompass all of the other aspects of the cycle. Now moving on to the positions, again, you said this is meat and drink to the HR profession, isn't it? So it's the organisation design, it's the workforce planning, it's the future skills mapping, it's the job descriptions, the job design, spans of control, all of the factors that would influence you to organise an organisation in a particular way. So this is the kind of classic organisation design lens that we'd apply to the position management. Not just about job descriptions, about getting efficiencies in organisation, looking at the way in which you position the core of the business versus anything you might outsource or anything you might offshore. So looking at the organisation model and determining in a very kind of way which is independent of the individuals in the jobs, looking at how you would create an organisation and then structure the jobs within that organisation end to end to be able to achieve the organisational goals. The third one is about then mapping the people to the positions. So clearly you've got the opportunity to look at your existing people. Are they in the right jobs? How do they fit to a new organisation? Are you leading a restructure, which is often the case with the HR teams, of course? Or are there real kind of hiring needs at a senior level in terms of populating a new executive team, for example? Or indeed just looking at areas like volume recruitment, talking about rapid expansion. So what are your future hiring needs? How does that fit into your view of the emerging organisation structure? So this has got implications for hiring, training, development, assessment of people, really getting a good feel for the capabilities of your current employees, your gaps, and the learning paths that people will need to take to be effective in newly designed positions. Moving on to the processes, this is everything from HR process, policies, systems, the whole infrastructure end to end across the business. So looking at the handoffs and the value chains, not just within the HR department, but for all the operational parts of the business, to look at how business is organised, how things happen in a very structured and efficient way to benefit the wider business. So it's looking at the whole HR infrastructure, the nuts and bolts, the policies, how does it all get tied together? The performetrics part is more around the performance management piece, which would include things like balanced scorecards, assessment methodologies for the business, operational tracking, reporting, the alignment of KPIs of individuals to teams and to the wider organisation, the enabling supporting mechanisms like bonuses, performance reviews, reward, commissions, whatever the supporting remuneration infrastructure needs to be to reinforce the right organisational performance. Define it through scorecards, measure it, make it visible to the executive team, and have a real kind of performance-based organisation. And finally, passion. This is quite a broad area, but it includes, for example, the process of leadership, as leaders having the biggest impact on the organisation, defining the culture of the organisation, the alignment of vision and values to culture. It's looking at behaviours, and in the HR field particularly, if you're looking at key HR skills as influencers, true business partnering, consulting to the business, having the impact that the HR function needs to have, and all of the ways in which you would develop those skill sets at a senior level. So it's really having a profound impact on the organisation's culture. So essentially what I've been doing is taking this model and applying it to the HR director, to the HR function. Again, with those two lenses in mind, the HR director driving this change cycle across the wider business, but equally applying it to the HR function itself and developing the skill sets to be able to be effective as organisational change agents, but also be effective as an HR function. And we've developed this training programme to reinforce both of those things, depending on your context and where the opportunities are for you in your particular roles is where they're coming from. So you may feel that, given some of the things we discussed this morning and other things, that you'd want to focus on particular aspects of the 6P framework. You may feel that certain aspects of this are well embedded within your organisation. You may feel that all areas need to be revisited if you're going through a major restructuring, for example. So it'll all depend on organisational context and the degree to which you can influence these things across the wider business, as well as within your own functions. And essentially we are providing the skills as well as the methodologies for you to be effective in the role, both through the programme itself and there are, as Kay and David were saying, there are 24 sub-modules beneath these headlines, but also through personal support and coaching to you, you leaders of the function, whoever would benefit from it in terms of an individual support, running alongside the core programme itself. I'll pause there. Does that present any questions?